So just to zoom in on two themes that we just heard, part of the transportation part, right? Spoke and hub. What do you do when you can't move things very far? And then also, why have we not developed some of this yet? Part of the answer also is time and money, and I'm here to show you a little bit of a local picture of how some of that time and money is now being spent in the right spot. We'll then move over to Arizona and hear about that. So I'm going to zip through this. This will be largely just a nice overview. So the first thing here is to move on. So hi, I'm Eric Riggs. I serve as the Dean of the College of Natural Resources and Sciences at Cal Poly Humboldt. Where is that? We are up there on the California coast. And so we are, if you look at the entire northern tier of the state, Glenda fortunately left all that for me to describe because she called Northern California a bunch of Central California ultimately. But Northern California is that vast stretch of forest land between that portion, like Sacramento and San Francisco, all the way north to the Oregon border. Roughly a land area about the size of the state of Maine with roughly about the same population. And so it is very much not Los Angeles, very much not San Francisco. It's a very remote area. Some of it, especially as you get into either of the mountainous extremes, is incredibly rugged and very remote territory, difficult stuff, incredibly rich forest land. And so what do you encounter when you go up there? You first of all see lots of rocky coastlines, a very tectonically active coastline. It has got the California Current flowing south along there. It's very rich fisheries, not a lot of ports, not a lot of places to move things except Humboldt Bay. And so when you do get to Humboldt Bay, you get a very nice accident of tectonics. I'm a geologist, so I get to geek out on that for a while, where you do actually have a natural deep water port, and it's one of these places that for the timber industry for many years was a place to export both pulp and chips, still is, and logs, also still is, but also could be so much more because there's access to the Pacific Rim there. This is also where most of the Northern California wind area will be built and exported from as those projects ultimately get moving. So there's a lot of infrastructure in that area already. There's past industrial infrastructure in the region, and there's a workforce that is ready to retool. So we have some facilities that are ready to go. And so in addition to some road transport in and out of the area, this is also where we're talking about some of the transport opportunities. Obviously, people know this area for the redwood forests. This is why a lot of folks come there to vacation and check it out. Also a fabulous timber source and second growth now that we have no longer doing old growth logging. But if you move slightly inland, there are just vast, vast quantities of active timberland, most of it in industrial hands. When you look at our economic area, you can see it's Mendocino, Lake, Humboldt County there in the middle, and then Del Norte County all the way at the top, right up against the Oregon border. You've got a very large land area, again, just 2.2 million acres worth of timberland in there, just a bit, and not very many people, but a lot of folks focused around the forestry industry and many other industries. Obviously, the cannabis industry is in that area as well, but we're here talking about wood products. So here's Humboldt County. You can see the map on the right shows you that it is largely a mixed conifer forest, lots and lots of good feedstock for wood products. This has been traditionally used to generate logs, dimensional lumber, and all the rest, and then, of course, far too much biochar, unless it is locally generated at mills and is useful as a byproduct. Again, I agree with everything Glenda just said. Portable biochar is part of the story, but there are way too many atoms out of place up there as forests that need to be thinned to maintain their health in order to, we can't just burn that all into charcoal by pyrolysis. We've got to find something else to do with this. And we can't transport it very far because it just doesn't pencil. The map on the left shows you that these are mostly in industrial timberland holdings. There are some federal lands in the area. There are a number of tribal communities in the area that are also very interested in this puzzle. And so we are engaging actively with all those partners. The mix in this, and one reason we're taking a new role in this as a university, is that until very recently, we were Humboldt State University. And we became, in 2022, California's third polytechnic university. And while we've had legacy programs in forestry, we're still the largest forestry program in the state by far. We have an opportunity to move into new space to serve the system better, to serve the state better. We were designated by the California State University Board of Trustees as the third polytechnic university in the 22 campus system. And this is a campus, this is a system that complements the University of California, both in research. Mostly our focus is on applied research at the undergraduate involved research, master's granting institutions, but then also into workforce development. And this is some of our key areas. We are given nearly $500 million in investment into the university. This almost never happens in academic settings unless you're founding a new campus someplace. And we are charged with reinventing ourselves as a polytechnic, taking the existing traditional strengths that we had in applied learning while doing hands-on activities, field-based activities, and how can we move this forward as an engine of economic growth in the area. And that formed sort of our place in the genesis of the project that we're describing here today. Community engagement, I think, is the great strength of the community, both community college partners, but then also the California State University system. We are, by design, embedded very strongly in our service areas, and in which case, for us, you can see where our little H is on that map. That pretty much is a huge swath of Northern California. The nearest university to us is probably Chico State University at the northern end of the Sacramento Valley. We've also got UC Davis to the south and a couple of other CSU schools in the mix there. So we serve a very large area and we have some opportunities. We were asked to stand up just a few new academic programs. It's been a very busy last 4 or 5 years. I was brought there to execute this implementation in the sciences and in engineering. We added programs in fire science. We added programs in mechanical engineering, building on environmental engineering. We added a lot of programs in energy systems engineering, preparing for wind power development. We already have energy research institutes. So we are setting up for more of this. Getting at your question of why wasn't this done before? Well, it takes a minute to build some of this, and this hadn't been done for a while. So this is one investment the state made in trying to drive at that problem of how do we develop resources that fill the donut hole that the UC system has kind of left open for us in a very nice way of being that connector right in that last mile between communities, industrial bases, and workforce needs. So we are looking at building new programs that will move more into wood-based bioproducts, especially in materials, especially in potentially natural resources decision-making systems, and then also potentially into other issues around conservation finance. We're still exploring that right now. We have a lot of existing partnerships in the area to build on. We serve as an extension, essentially, of the land grant system without being as such. In the area, we serve as a base of operations for a number of federal partnerships. We have a lot of, because of our location, we have many different local private sector collaborations already, and again, strong research activity existing in energy systems, forestry, agriculture, fisheries, and including health. We are also now part of the new fiber optic networks that have been stretched up California so we can get information in and out of the area much more reliably than before, which is good. So we now even have our own supercomputing node on campus. We've got some pretty new buildings, all mass timber, first mass timber building opening soon, in the first academic mass timber building opening in the CSU system very soon, and we even got a pretty new research vessel out of the deal. We have run marine research out of Humboldt for many years. So Christy Prescott is the executive director of the Forest Works Alliance. There she is, over there. She has stood up a network based around this. We are one of many partners, and you can see the network members there. We could talk about the entire network structure, but she is really the connector in chief. If my job in this partnership is to connect into the university's landscape, hers is to connect into the outer landscape. And so she has built a network and got funded with California Jobs First money to help kick off this network to start to look for how can we build a local response and dive into the bioeconomy, focusing on forest products. Here's really the guts of it. I mean, the whole point is to scale both forest and grassland restoration capacity. We have an accredited rangeland management program that has a very strong grasslands focus, strong botany, strong forestry programs. Again, workforce, career paths, expand some of this critical infrastructure, and then work with our tribal communities, work with our local communities, and all by reducing wildfire risk, by thinning, increasing forest health, increasing economic health, all of these good things. So this is really the economy that we're looking to build. With healthy forests as the central goal, obviously also healthy economies built around that. Stewardship, workforce training, environment and jobs. Getting to the projects, because I want to make sure I leave Bill plenty of time to do his thing. We have lots of different assets in the mix. We've got a lot of natural resources, clearly. We have strong social networks in the area. We are well connected between her networks and our networks at the university. We're connected deeply into these communities, and so bringing communities along to help realize that there is a different path forward with what you do with wood products other than just burn them or cut them. We have political capital. We seem to have the winds at our back with the state basically getting behind us, doing some of this work, which is good. And what we're finding at meetings like this is that there's financial interest in this as well. And so we are actively looking for partnerships, both manufacturers and financiers, to figure out how to make this all work. Christie's Alliance has a number of projects in the mix, which now includes the first mass timber manufacturing facility in the state. It's ironic that mass timber is often shipped, the feedstock is shipped from California to Oregon, and then we buy it back as mass timber. This makes little sense. And so, fortunately, working with local mill owners, we have now stood up dowel laminated mass timber in the region, which is good. So that's the first step in the right direction. What's next in this direction is to keep innovating in wood products that can be manufactured and shipped locally. In addition to things like pre-processing and shipping feedstocks out, it'd be nice to also ship finished product from the area. California has a wildfire problem and a reconstruction problem, and so coming up with disaster-resilient materials would be a useful thing to do locally, but also then we need to test it. It needs to be ISO certified, so that's something we can do at the university or on university property. We need to build larger scale testing facilities for both burning things as well as structural tests. That's something we're working with the Harbor District to do because they have the industrial facilities, and yeah, we would like to reconstruct those. So anyhow, that's all the space that we're moving into. We have lots of projects on the horizon right now. And so with this, I just wanted to basically throw this out there as an invitation to talk with all of you and to learn. I've learned a lot already from this meeting as well, and I look forward to the conversations to come. So thank you. Please join us on this journey. Now I'd like to transition you over to Bill, and we're going to take you over to Arizona as a fabulous extension.
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm the Director of Strategic Integration at ASU Lightworks. ASU, many of you may know, is a small school of 190,000 students. We're located in Phoenix, and we have a president who sees the role of the universities as not only inventing things, but actually inventing things that have an impact, and then also reaching out into the communities. So I often think humor or humorists are a good way to sort of think about, well, how do you think about invention? And I'm thinking here about Mark Twain, who said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. So one of the things that we've done is we've been working with our forest community up in northern Arizona. And yes, Arizona does have saguaros, but we have all these ponderosa forests that grow up on the Colorado Plateau as it drops into the desert. And the thing that we've been looking at is how to work and think about this whole forest community as a different type of landscape. So let me offer you an investment thesis to think about. It's not a company that you're investing in. It's not even a sector you're investing in, but it's how do you invest in the landscape. And across the American West, we have millions of acres that are effectively, you can think of it as mispriced assets. They burn, they clog supply chains, and yeah, they cost us money. And yet they contain raw materials for energy, carbon removal, and rural industry. So the question is, why shouldn't we invest in biomass? So our theory of change is if you stabilize the flow, you can unlock finance, and finance then enables scale. So if we think about what we've got here on the slides, you can see that what we've got are 4 investment hypotheses that we think might unlock some value in the proposition. So just to give everybody some context, these are the 4 forests. They're federal forests that are ponderosa. And you can see what they look like up on the Colorado Plateau. And what the U.S. Forest Service wants to do is they want to increase the amount of acreage that they're thinning from 20,000 to 40,000 acres. And the reason they want to do this is because we know we have a fire problem. And we know that if we don't do this, the probability of having a huge fire that they don't want to have is significant. So the question is, how do we actually make this possible and how do we make it happen? Because this has been a standing ambition and we can never quite seem to get there. So we know the material exists. The question is can you build a system that functions reliably enough so that capital can step in? So when you think about forests, the supply is inconsistent. It comes down in a pulsed flow, and that's not a problem of the forest. It's just a problem about how we think about it. If we have a buffering place where, like a parking lot, we can park this material, then industry can come right alongside and then try to figure out how they can then take that buffered material and move it downstream. And equally so, that buffering system, which we're going to call an independent system operator, can actually deal with burps and hiccups from the downstream part of the business as well. And so in a way, what we're doing is thinking that we're going to invest in a transmission between the engine that's driving the crankshaft and the wheels that are driving the industrial piece of the system. So the supply analysis, what we've looked at it is we have to deal with the pulses. We have to be able to react in a way that can manage the system. And we have too many touches right now. And we basically try to offload risk on projects rather than letting risk sit in the middle of the system. Now, this is not anything that's novel or new. Certainly in agricultural sectors, we have grain elevators that are used for farming and managing supplies in and out of the farming system. In the oil and gas system, we all know that they're tank farms, and these tank farms work remarkably well. So what we're doing is proposing to think of an investment hypothesis where the system operator works for the benefit of everyone. So the independent system operator in this cartoon does a few things. It allows people to route direct when it's possible and when that makes sense, but it also allows for an aggregation of materials. So when it's snowing in the mountains, or there's spotted owl season, or there's fire season, the material is available for industry. A sense of shared verification is really useful because what it does is it means everybody has a sense of understanding what that is. And so whether you're a major off-taker or a minor off-taker or a small and medium-sized enterprise, you have access to material that will basically keep your business moving and in place. Now this chart, because it's like everything, you can wave your arms and talk about concepts, but we sort of say, what do we do? You can probably see these little circles there on the right-hand side of the chart. These are laydown areas that we've identified working with the Forest Service that would be available to operate this system. And what's unique about it is the Forest Service has been unusually and highly cooperative in trying to make this work. And what they're doing is essentially making a contribution of non-cash assets to the system. And this, we think, can create pilot projects that can be used other places. So whether there's state forests or local forests or federal forests, you have this opportunity to make something like this work. So essentially what we're proposing to do with the Forest Service is work on developing a pilot plant that will allow us to get some experience in working with the major operators and the major loggers who will be able to make this material move. So in summary, what we've got is some current takeaways is that everybody wants to see better flow continuity, and if you're running a business, who wouldn't? There needs to be a clear yard discipline that will work for loggers and the trucking community. The accountability comes with running an independent system, and the net result is a more reliable supply. Now, what that means for the community, because that's really important, and we've heard people talk about this in some other presentations, is it obviously generates construction jobs and facility operation jobs and contracting wood jobs. All of this has to move forward. And what we think this will enable the system to do is actually stand up an operating system that will be able to double the amount of forests that are going to be treated by the Forest Service. And I grew up in the construction business. My dad was a contractor, and the one thing you never did was leave a job until you had all 4 walls of your house up and they were tied down. Because the wind does blow, and if you leave 3 walls up, there's a pretty high risk that it will all come down. And that has been the approach that has been used up until this point. And we think now we've got enough people saying, we've tried this a couple times, let's try something different. So what are we doing? Well, we're working with our business development partners in Navajo and Apache County and also Coconino County, so this is a collective effort. We're basically working to sort of keep a neutral layer that is going to be available to make the system work better for everybody. We're trying to ensure that industry is deeply involved in how we set this up, and we're trying to preserve that local community development capacity. And so what we're doing is we're now at the stage of raising some catalytic funding to set this independent system operator up. And what catalytic funding is, it's not a 20% return. It's a return that basically goes back to the shareholders at very, very low cost interest. But we think that communities focused on being able to do this will be able to make this effort, and we think in that way they will be able to change the landscape. And that concludes my presentation.